Coming into senior seminar, I knew I wanted to find a way to bridge dance and digital anthropology together. So the goal of this research project is to examine the way young dancers are using social media, specifically Instagram. To stay involved in the dance world, young dancers are swarming to social media platforms to network, stay informed, and keep up on the latest trends. My research questions will be focused on the possible benefits and drawbacks social media can have on the standards these dancers are holding themselves to. While exploring social media related articles on dance magazine sites, I came across this term called dance erotica, and the author describes or says that social media has created an environment where, quote, the physical attributes coveted by dancers are fetishized, presented in such extremity that they border on the grotesque, unrealistic, and unuseful. My project intends to try and see if there's any online evidence to back these claims, in order to be able to classify the posts I intend to examine on Instagram. Questions that will help me understand this better are: what is the general history of the relationship between dance and media? What are the most common practices and images associated with so-called dance erotica? And do these posts on Instagram negatively or positively impact young dancers? We live in a time that is so social media driven, it affects every discipline. And my goal is to see how social media can both positively or negatively impact young dancers' learning, the way they train, and the way that they see the dance community and what a good dancer looks like. This is journal entry number 2. In this entry, I will be discussing the readings that I have done for this project. So the first reading is an article in the Journal of Aesthetic Education called Dance as Portrayed in the Media. In the reading, the author seeks to determine how knowledge construction of dance develops within the public sphere and the effects media has on dance education. So her argument is something that I align myself with, which is the idea that the public's perception of dance is developed based on their access to knowledge about what dance is. It's also important to note that she acknowledges a limitation in her research, being that her work only uses newspaper articles, noting that future research should include an analysis of both visual and audio clips of dance as well. Even though our research questions are different, I think that my work can not necessarily fill the gaps in her research, but at the very least shed some light on it. It is also important to say that her framework is coming from that of Indian classical dance, and she uses that knowledge to talk about the history of Indian dance being used as a socio-political statement. My framework comes from a more Western perspective on classical modern, postmodern, and contemporary dance forms. Her methodological lens for this study uses critical discourse analysis to study the discourse of dance in articles in the New York Times. By doing this, she creates a kind of fieldwork on paper, which is exactly what I'm trying to do on Instagram. For the purpose of her project, the way she found her articles was by using key terms like religious dance, dance education, and then just dance in general to narrow down her search. Similarly to the way I plan to study hashtags online. She did this as a way to narrow down her search to only the most relevant information. She then continues to categorize the articles based on overall themes, which then get broken down into smaller subcategories. Her two big ones were dance in education and dance in society. Her findings conclude a need not just to educate students through movement, but to educate the teachers on how to do it properly. Her findings also stimulate the public sphere into thinking whether dance is, quote, sinful in an educational setting. She also touches on the very apparent divide in opinion about whether dance education has a place in higher education. Ultimately, her work is a call for the public sphere to define the purpose of dance, despite the way the media may portray it. To her, the purpose of dance is to allow individuals to have access to any dance education that they desire, regardless of wealth or social status. And to me, this article is kind of a mirror image about what I'm trying to do through social media. And one of the things I've been thinking about is how social media has connected this campus. I mean, just in this building alone, one of the cool things about it is that there are TV screens that when you use hashtags like Potsdam Proud, your posts will pop up for people in the building to see. And I knew that that was going to be an important part of my research, and I knew that I wanted to include that. And I think what better way to get a better understanding of how young dancers are using social media than to basically go straight to the source. To get a better understanding of how young dancers are using Instagram, I thought, why don't I create a short survey that dancers of SUNY Potsdam could fill out anonymously and write down their Instagram preferences and kind of get a better sense of who people are looking up to, idolizing, or trying to imitate. And today I will be discussing my intended research method. So to start, I created a separate Instagram account that is solely dedicated to this project. One of my primary subjects of study will be 7 dance-related Instagram accounts that I will follow on the new account. These accounts are not personal accounts, but repost accounts. These also include dance companies and dance performance groups. My other subject of study will be 15 dance-related hashtags. I will be saving and categorizing posts that pop up in my feed that have a decent amount of likes and/or comments. After collecting the posts, I will then be doing a discourse analysis of the comments. I will also examine some of the similarities and differences among the posts that use the same hashtags. The way that I've chosen what Instagram accounts and hashtags to follow come from an anonymous survey that I conducted on students of theater and dance. I then studied the surveys and took the most popular reoccurring hashtags and accounts and included them on the accounts that I was going to follow. I am also in the process of creating interview questions for 2 students. I will also be showing them some of these posts that have come up on my feed and that I have saved. I thought I would just come on and kind of reflect on my research process. First, I want to kind of discuss some of the activities I observed. One thing that I noticed immediately is that when I look at all the posts that I saved that came up on my feed is that a lot of them are ballet dancers and contemporary dancers, kind of like competition dance. And then some of it is more contemporary dance in general. And the first thing that I'm noticing is the hashtags that I saved definitely influenced the kind of posts that I saw, meaning that there was patterns within the hashtag. So for example, hashtag, let's see, ballet body kind of all had a similar aesthetic in that it would usually show dancers performing some kind of leg work. Because I'm not able to go through the screen and speak with these viewers in person, but I can only make my own general ideas about what I think is happening online based on what I'm being presented with. Overall, I would say comments are pretty neutral. There were not a lot of hate comments or what I perceived as hate comments, meaning anything that seemed demeaning to the person that posted the content or anything that was attacking other people in the comments. The only time I ever really saw that was on accounts for that TV shows, and a lot of it was debating in the comment section about whether or not a specific dancer or specific dance group deserved to win. A lot of people were like, where is the dance? And a lot of people were saying, well, it's acrobatics. Acro is a legitimate form of dance. So there was a lot of dialogue going back and forth about what dance is, which was interesting because it kind of played a role in my research questions, which is whether or not the values of young dancers are shifting. So that kind of gave me an interesting idea or an interesting look into how contemporary or new styles of dance are being perceived by the public. I can see a clear divide between people who don't like the new styles of dance and people who do. So I interviewed 2 students. They were really helpful in getting a better understanding of how certain images are being perceived by dancers. I already had kind of an insider knowledge about the dance community. The first thing I want to discuss is my position as a researcher and my relationship to this project. A lot of the posts that I see on my personal account are dance related. So I've already been exposed to a lot of the imagery that I proceeded to see in my research and in my data collection surveys that I conducted. And I knew that it was important to do that because I knew that if I just looked at my own dance account, that it would be extremely biased because it would only show the dance that I'd like to see. And that's not what this project was about. Another thing that should be pointed out is my age. So I can really only speak on experiences from a 21-year-old standpoint. One thing I will say is the hashtags that I collected from the surveys were just a jumping off point. I did have a lot of contemporary and a lot of hip hop and a lot of modern content. I have to keep that in mind in the sense that this might not be the case for all styles of dance online or for the way all styles of dance are received or perceived online. I think it affected my research somewhat. I was looking a lot at content, at ballet content and how ballet content was being received by viewers online. I think another research problem was conducting the interview. It should be noted that I do know these people and that I have shared the classroom with these people, so I knew some of their opinions on certain subjects. The way that I perceive dance on social media now is a lot different. That got me thinking. I was like, are these posts really harmful? Because a lot of these comments suggest otherwise. They're all envious of each other in the sense that we all wish we could look like a certain person. We all wish we could look like something that we're not, but that's okay. And we can use these people who may not look like us as inspiration to get to where we want to be.